Hey everybody, welcome to another video review. I haven't done one of these in a while and I like to kind of get back to them. And I've been doing a lot of video game uploads, just sort of taking advantage of my PlayStation 5's ability to upload directly from the console. But I like to kind of get back to doing a few more nice statue reviews. And this one I have a lot to say because it's sort of an interesting statue, sort of weird. And I had some mixed sort of reaction to it, but just to give you some background, this is the Tifa Lockhart statue from the video game Final Fantasy VII Remake. This was originally released for the PS4, and Tifa is one of the main characters for Final Fantasy VII. And this is a statue made by O2 Studios, like Oxygen, I guess, O2 Studios, Neoclassicism. It's sort of a mouthful, but I guess this is one of these Chinese companies or whatnot. I don't normally collect anime statues, certainly not of this type, and so I'm not sure what companies are reputable or great and what companies are not. But a little bit of backstory before getting into the meat of this review here. As you can see, I have all the parts all kind of spread out. And I'll discuss pretty soon why I have that kind of like this, not my normal typical review. But anyways, a little bit of backstory. Final Fantasy VII, I don't know if it needs any introduction. If you are a video game fan, or if you played video games, especially in the 90s during the PlayStation 1 days, Final Fantasy needs no introduction. It is a legendary video game, role-playing game, one of the seminal video games in history. And when Square at the time, kind of left Nintendo and went to the PlayStation 1, and they released Final Fantasy VII for that console, it was a generational move, and everyone kind of remembers that. Just for historical purposes, Final Fantasy VII was just kind of earth-shaking, and of course it doesn't hurt that it was also a remarkable role-playing game, a remarkable video game as well. So to make a long story short, there was a lot of excitement a couple years ago when Square Enix finally decided to answer a lot of fans' sort of requests over the decades, not even years but decade. And they decided to remake Final Fantasy VII with new character models, kind of with modern generation effects. And this was kind of an amazing thing. And to take advantage of that, a lot of statue companies began to make unlicensed statues of the main characters, Cloud, Aerith, and Tifa. And Tifa, it was a very, very popular character from the original series. This is her picture, and this is what she looks like in the remake, essentially. And so a lot of different companies were making their quarter-scale Tifa statues. Tons of them, all of them unlicensed because Square Enix themselves don't really make statues of this quality and this size. And so it had to be unlicensed. And literally the market was flooded with her. I'm not exaggerating when I say there must be close to a dozen different companies making versions of Tifa from Final Fantasy Remake. And some of them are good, some of them not so good. And so I chose to buy two of them. I chose to buy the Pink Studios one, and I chose to buy this one, the Neoclassicism one. And I'll go into detail on why I decided to do that. I do like Final Fantasy VII, and I've always wanted to have great statue representations of the characters. And from the Final Fantasy VII original on the PlayStation, the character models were very basic, a little bit laughable. Even the FMV was just okay. And so of course to have a remake with this level of quality and this kind of the reimagined character model, and then to have a statue of that was something that I didn't want to miss out on. And so I got these two, and I have this one of course in hand because I felt that they would be the best versions. I liked them the best when I saw them several months ago, about a year ago, on the different Facebook statue collecting websites. Now I was a little bit worried because early shots came out from people in China who had gotten this statue in hand, and some of the early shots looked a little bit questionable. And this again goes to show you not to ever judge too quickly based on early photos, because a lot of times those are taken with just cell phones under very, very bad lighting, and it makes the production pictures look pretty bad, not very fair, in other words, to the statues. But when I first saw it, it didn't look good, and I was a little bit just sort of worried, and my expectations sort of really, went down. And I just sort of forgot about getting the statue. I had paid a deposit for it, and then finally, the company I bought it from said the statue was ready to ship, and so they wanted the balance, which was like $250, give or take, which wasn't too bad. But then it cost another almost $200, over $180, to ship it surface airmail. And so the total cost for this thing is quite a bit. I mean, the statue itself was, I think, in the neighborhood of 500 plus, give or take. And then you still had to pay an extra, almost 200 for shipping, bringing the total to close to $700 for like a quarter scale statue, which is very, very pricey. So I finally got it in, and then I opened it up. I think the packaging was very good, very meticulous. The styrofoam, the foam was cut very nicely. In terms of fitting the parts of the statue, it was secured very tightly with the now routine or standard Velcro straps. And then when you open it, all of the pieces were wrapped in plastic bags to prevent scratching. So I can't fault the packaging. It was very, very well done, very nicely packaged. So the quality there is excellent in terms of the packaging. The one odd thing is that when I opened the second layer, there was a lot of water in the area. And I don't know whether it was raining in the factory at that time or whatnot, but there was a bit of water in the bags. There doesn't seem to be any extensive paint damage or anything, but it was kind of odd that happened. And then the statue does come with two little perks that I like. One is this solid metal. This feels like metal is very heavy. And this is like a commemorative plaque, showcasing that you've bought Tifa Lockhart. Quarter scale proportion. It has the logo of Oxygen right here, and the logo O2 Studios on the back. And then finally, the edition number. I got 324 out of 332, and this does match the bottom of the base as well. And so, as you can see, I'm going to put it right here. You can hear it. This is definitely metal. It's a very nice, classy accent, and I do appreciate that. Modern statues, say Sideshow or XM, Prime One, etc., they don't really have that, and so it's a whole different world of collecting video game statues, anime style statues. But I thought this was kind of a very nice, classy thing. It was appreciated. This is not cheap, and a lot of companies would rather save money, and it's actually like carved. You can actually, it's like relief, so you can actually see. You can actually feel that. So this is something good. I'm pleased with this addition. We'll put that aside for now. And then second, I do appreciate the fact that they did include a so-called product instruction manual. So this is sort of a nice picture of the statue itself or the model. This is sort of like the 3D render. This is what sold me on the statue. I mean, I really liked the face. I thought it was a very, very well done face, pretty true to the video game. And I kind of liked the details. I liked the anatomy. You can see the details of the shirt and the texturing. I like the pose. Again, sort of the texturing of the leather work. Her boots. I don't know what these are, like the thigh highs, the socks or pantyhose. I don't know what you call that exactly. But anyways, I just really liked overall the picture, the detail, the way the anatomy is, accurate, all of that. So they give you this picture here, okay? And then over here, of course, they give you the two layers. So this is the top layer with all the parts of Tifa and her costume and arms. And then down below, the second layer is the base. And if you turn it over to the other side, it kind of tells you how to put it together bit by bit. It gives you all of the different options of display options, and then it kind of tells you that alcohol can wipe off the rubbing color. This product has 2 layers of protective paint, so in case you put the skirt on and then you scratch it, and some of the black of the plastic skirt gets on the statue, you can use alcohol to clean it up a little bit. Okay, so. That's, again, appreciated. And so I do like companies that provide little accents and little things that, the packaging, the plaques, those are little things, but it kind of adds a little bit of nice value to the statue. And those are the little things that, make a product in my mind exclusive and kind of gives you, again, the feeling that a premium price is justified for what, is a premium product. XM Studios, for instance, has something similar. In the old days, they would have, again, an instruction booklet, a little, very, very high quality, high production glass, thick paper. And it's unfortunate that I think they've done away with that now, so that, you now have to just go on the internet and look at it online to help you put things together. But I miss those things. So I'm very glad that this company, is still doing that, and that's appreciated. So let's get to the meat of the review after 10 minutes of sort of groundwork and context. So I want to start by basically showing you how to put the statue together, because one of the criticisms I have of this product is that the instructions are just awful. Now, when it comes to her, as you can see here, putting her together is actually, really easy. this is very, very simple. But the base is incredibly complicated. It has a lot of these tire tracks or like tank tracks or whatever you want to call it. And the instructions is not only completely not really useful, but even worse, misleading. And so there's only one other YouTube video, I think, unboxing her and also kind of reviewing her that I know of. I think it's from an Asian person, but I think he has an Australian accent. So I think he's in Australia. But that was really, really helpful. And so I'm hoping to add, again, to the knowledge base. So other people who get the statue, if they're inclined, can take a look at the video and really see how to put it together, because it is pretty complicated. And then after I put everything together, I can give you my thoughts on the statue overall and my feelings about it. So let's start off with the base. This is what you're going to build around. So you put Tifa on last. So this is sort of the keyed in holes for her feet. And definitely you want to put everything else around the base and get the base ready before you put her on, okay? So the first thing is, it's a very elegant silver base. In the front, you have the name Tifa Lockhart with the sort of the Final Fantasy VII logo over here. I'm okay with this. I'm not a huge fan typically of like names or plaques on the bases. They're okay, but I don't love them. And this one is very bland in the sense that it's completely gray and there's not much pizzazz to it, and it just basically blends completely with the silver of the base itself. You have to go really close to even read the name. Of course, you know that it's Tifa, but my feeling is if you're going to put a name plaque anyway, then maybe have it pop a little bit more than just this very boring monochromatic paint job, silver, and it just blends into the base. If that's going to happen, better just not to have this in the first place, right? So here you go here, all right? You can see if you turn it around, there's a very, very small defect here, which I don't really care about. Overall, very, very nice. And then if you kind of look at the base itself, the one thing I like to point out, again, just kind of zooming in a little bit, is they do a very, very beautiful job with the paint. Overall, I feel like the paint job on this production piece is like an A+. I have just almost no complaints, or I can't think of any complaints on the paint. This is beautifully done. And maybe it was helped by the fact that they only made about 300 and change of this piece, and so obviously the less you make, the more time the factories have to get some of the details right. But you can see that they do an outstanding job weathering giving you like weathering the paint, giving you different textures, and definitely giving you like this old gunmetal gray effect. It feels like metal. So the metal effects here are done very, very well. I'm just kind of lingering, getting close and kind of looking at the details. So it does look like riveted metal. The wires and all of this other pipes and things like that look very, very nice, very, very detailed. Just kind of appreciate the texturing. So this is outstanding work for a factory production, job. So certainly can't complain here. I'll put my hand back here so hopefully you can see a bit more. I don't have that black background just because it does kill a lot of the light. And so I just kind of want to use my overhead natural lighting to show you this. So this is the base that we're going to start adding onto. And this does tell you where the front is, right? So you can see that she's going to stand here. She's going to look out at you. So the nameplate tells you what's the front. So overall, great job, great start. Okay, really like the nice effects. Again, with the wires, the metal, the stone here. You can even see the details here. You can see the little rivets that they actually put in. So this is very good sculpt. Good detailed, clean sculpt. Now, one of the things that's really nice is that if you a little bit tricky, I'm going to try to do it with one hand. So there you go. So put it back here. Okay. So hopefully you can see this. With the base, again, it shows you the number. I got 324 out of 332. And it actually, again, gives you this color print of the actual statue. And that's something that the base, normally the bases don't have that. It's just, simple black or gray. So it's a very nice touch, again, to see that. And, no one will ever see the base, right? I mean, no one will ever see the base, but they did this just, again, to add that little touch of extra class to the product. So when they know that the collector who first gets it in hand will flip it over to take a look at what number they got, and they decide to reward you with one more print of this. So, I'm pretty impressed that they went to the trouble of doing that. It's a nice little logo. And again, Sideshow in the early days used to do that all the time. That was very, very good. Okay, so now I'm going to get this base on here. And I'm going to try to build it one-handed, which I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to. I'm going to try to. So follow along with me because this is where the part it gets kind of tricky. So the first thing to do is we're going to come over here and I'm going to go over again all of the detailed parts. So this is one of the parts of the base. The first thing you put on. Again, I'm going to take the opportunity to kind of go in close. You won't be able to see these details once the statue's put together because, of course, Tifa will be in the way. There'll be the tank treads in the way or the metallic treads. But again, just check out the attention to detail, the weathering. I've owned several Magneto pieces where metal and torn metal, destroyed metal, and destroyed tanks are a big part of the bases. And this ranks right up there with these Magneto pieces. Beautiful texturing of the metal that's ripped apart. Again, if I go really deep, you can kind of see all the little details that they painted in, the copper wiring and tubes. This is obviously some sort of mechanical enemy, or maybe a mecha boss from Final Fantasy VII torn to shreds. I admit I haven't had the time to play Final Fantasy Remake yet. It's something that's definitely on my to-do list. But this is from Midgar section of the game, and not hard to imagine it's probably from one of the environments or the bosses. I would guess it's one of the bosses that's been defeated. So take a look here, and then on the other side, again you have all of the battle damage here. The assumption is that Tifa was responsible for most of this. And again, sort of the detail of the chunks missing, very, very nice, okay? So you can see here that this is this bottom part here is magnetized and it's keyed. And so the first step is, you can see that this is the groove for it. And because it's magnetized, it just sits in very nicely, gently push it in. And you can see that there's gonna be this little part right here that just sort of rests here and connects this with the rest of the base. So once you put this part in here, you get this, okay? So now for the very first thing, I'm going to show you that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these, for lack of a better term, I just think of these as tank treads, okay? But whatever, they're treads. And if you look over here, they will show you and they will number all of these treads for you, right? So 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So there's 7 of them total. And if you flip it in the back, you are going to see that they are going to ask you in step 3 to put these treads in position. Now, while pretty, this is a completely and utterly useless picture. It doesn't tell you or give you any real hint what any of the treads look like, what they're supposed to do. It's a mess where it just says kind of like, oh, 16, 17, 18, just sort of put in this area off to the left of the base, and then 19, 20, 21, and 22 just slap over on the right side of the base. This is completely useless, and even worse, I think one of the ones 16, 17, 18, it actually goes on the other side, and one of 19, 20, 21 goes on the left. So it's absolutely misleading, and it just doesn't do anything at all. So you're going to just have to ignore that. It doesn't really tell you what to do. So again, the other YouTube video helped me quite a bit, and I'm hoping this will also help others. So now that you have this piece here, this is a no-brainer, right? So now what you want to do is you want to find one of the tank treads, and it's unique in the sense that instead of a peg that's supposed to fit in, this one actually has a hole. It's subtle. It's a very, very small hole. You have to look very carefully, and the hole is actually right on over here. Okay, so that's the hole right over here. And then there is a very, very small peg right over here. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. It is super easy to miss it, this peg right over here. And this hole goes onto this peg, and you might just have to fiddle with it a little bit. It should slide in with minimal force. Okay, so just kind of line it up. And then what I like to do is I just sort of like to wriggle it in. So, again, it's kind of tricky with one hand, but here we go. Okay, and you just sort of wriggle it in, and it will just seat itself very nicely without any problems. Okay, so that is tank tread number 1. So piece number 1, tank tread number 1 in position. Okay, so now the next step up is to take this piece and put it in position. Again, before putting it in onto the base, I want you hopefully to be able to appreciate the wonderful paint job. It's all the same type of theme as the base, so the paint is the same with, again, the weathering and the metal. But I just want to, again, have you take a look at how well done both the cast is, as well as like how detailed the sculpt and the cast is. And all of these, of course, are digitally sculpted and then cast directly from the computer files. And while that does, in a way, take a little bit of the magic from sculpting like they did by hand in the old days, it's hard to argue that as time has passed, the quality has just become really, really amazing. So again, look at the detail, look at the paint job, beautiful paint. I mean, I've gotten work done by paint masters, and I don't know that it would be that much better if one of the paint masters did it. So this is definitely very, very good, very impressive. So if you look closely at the bottom, you are going to see right over here a specific shape peg. And this is specifically keyed into this hole right over here. Okay, that's the hole that you're going to put that peg in. Now, according to the instructions, they want you to just sort of slap it on, because the earlier step, specifically step 2, is telling you to put it in there. So if you do that, I'm just going to do it for you. You're going to kind of just line it up. It's magnetized, and so it's magnetized on both ends. So the magnetized down here, and there's a magnet over here, and it just sort of very nicely just sort of, boom, settles in. So you think you're done here, but if you do that, again, according to their instructions, you would have made a mistake. You can't do that. What you have to do actually is you have to actually apply or put these 2 tank treads onto this piece first, and then put this piece onto the base, which they don't really tell you. So again, how are we going to do this? We'll start with this. So this has, as you can see, a peg right here, and that peg has to go into the corresponding hole. And if you look very carefully, you will see that the hole is right over here, and this is a peg whose shape uniquely lines up with this, and it's also magnetized. So if you just sort of line it up and you put it in, it basically magnetizes right in here. Okay, so this is put in. So another thing I like about this statue is that most of these little parts are actually magnetized, even the very small ones, which is something even custom groups are trying to be cheap and save money on. But little tiny magnets like this really make it a lot better. It does increase labor, it does increase cost, but it makes parts fit together a lot nicer, and it gives them more security so that these things don't fall off. So another thing that's appreciated. Okay, so boom, this slides right through. And then there is another hole, if you are looking at this very carefully, right over here. And this hole is what we're going to want to put this tread in. And you can see that there is a peg here. And so that peg is going to have to go right in the hole here. Okay, so hopefully you can follow. So this is the only tread that's double. Okay, that's double. And this is the smallest tire tread here, the smallest piece. So each of the treads has a distinguishing factor. Like this is the smallest one, it goes under here. This is the double piece right over here, it goes over here. And of course, this is the only one that actually has a hole instead of a peg, okay? So let's, again, try to wriggle this through. It's gonna be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to wriggle it like right over here, and this is where it goes through. Okay, so you're gonna have to play with it, gently rotate, put gentle pressure, and then it should seat in very nicely. Now in some, there are gonna be some variations. So in some of them, this fits too loosely, and if it does, you might have to use a little bit of silly putty to tighten the fit. But when I did this initially, it was actually fit in very nicely with no problems. So of course, it's a bit of a pain to do this with one hand, but I'm trying to. I'm just gonna gently rotate while applying steady pressure, and there you go here. All right. So that's about as good as it gets. It gets seated seated nicely. I think if I let go of the camera and did it with two hands, I could get it in a little bit better. But in any case, boom, okay? So now when you have this piece attached and this piece attached, then you can finally attach the whole thing like I showed you. So again, this is the slot that you want to put in right here. And we're going to take advantage of the magnet. Boom. Okay, so this is how it goes in. This piece is in here, this piece is over here, and then this thing is magnetized and placed right over here. Hold on a second. I want to make sure I did this right. Again, rather awkward doing it with one hand and the other one trying not to screw things up with the camera. Okay. Come on. All right, there it goes. That's seated nicely. So you know it seats nicely when the peg fits into the hole, and then there's the back magnet right here, and it just basically rests and magnetizes right here. And now you know that you're done. Okay, so moving on from this side to the other side, as you can see, there is a piece right here with a very distinctive hole, and we have a piece right on over here with a very distinctive peg, and it's magnetized, and it just basically slides right in. And you can literally just throw it on there. It's magnetized that well. So that's a piece that goes right to the base right here. Okay. Now we have this broken piece of metal. This is one of my favorite parts of the base. Look at how detailed that is. It's, you know, a transformer statue couldn't be any better. So check this out. Really, really nice. Look at all the little different wires and pipes. Done extremely well. So this is the peg that's going to go into the hole in our base. Here we go here. Very beautiful paint job. Look at how sharp the sculpt is, how sharp the casting is. Phenomenal, really. All right, so this thing is going to, there's going to be a hole right back here. I hope you can see that. So there's the hole. I'm going to point at it with my pinky, or whatever, with my forefinger, right here with my big, long, uncut fingernail, right over here. Apologize for my long fingernails. I'm just a little bit forgetful. I haven't trimmed it in a bit, but I guess it helps here to show you. So right there, that's the hole. And this thing here is going to, this peg is going to slide right into that hole. Okay, so how am I going to do it? With one hand, you steady the base, and then you just sort of feel the hole, and then it just goes in. All right, here it goes. So you kind of go like that. And again, with two hands, it'll be a lot easier to do, but that's basically how that goes, okay? So this is how it seats. Again, if you do it this way, it'll be more difficult because you have to actually put these three treads into this piece, and then you put this piece onto the base, okay? So the first one that you're going to want to look at is going to be, I believe, this piece right here. So you want to look for one where the peg is at the very end, just like that. You can see the magnet right there. And it's at the very end. It's a pretty long tread. And there's a hole. I'm going to orient you. So this is one of the holes here, but the other hole is right here, okay, at the bottom. And you key it in just like that. And again, don't force it. It's magnetized. If you put it in there, it basically snaps right in and goes all the way up. And you have to put this piece in first because the other one has this here. This is the peg. It fits into this space, and you're just going to throw that in there like this. And it overlaps, so it's a lot harder to put this piece on if you have this in the way. So you want to put the long one up here first, and then the one with the pegs at the end, and then you want to put the peg in the middle right over here, okay? So this is now all set up. Now this is the most diabolical one. You have another tread, this is the last tread, and you have a peg here, and for the life of me, I gave up. I could not find where the hole for this stupid peg is. I looked high and low, nothing seemed to fit, nothing seemed to make any sense. Well, here goes. It's actually on this, again, beautiful, mechanical, mechanical piece over here. It's right here. I mean, it looks for all the world like part of the battle damage, but it's not. This here is where you have the hole to put this guy right here. So how to do it? I'm just going to have to angle it right over here, and hopefully it'll fit for me. Just like that. Come on, there you go, boom. So I don't think that's magnetized, but it slides in perfectly. Okay, so now that's in, just like that. And now you have your portion of the base with 1, 2, 3 tank treads or tire treads or whatever you want to call it attached, and then together you will put it in the hole right over here, and then you just sort of slide it in position. This part's not magnetized, so it just kind of goes in, and you just sort of move it along, and then you just let it rest on the back. So that is how you get all of the different treads as well as the pieces in place. So to summarize, this tread is the only one with a small hole. It goes on a very small peg on this detachable base piece. That's the first thing you do. And then this part here is magnetized both with a peg into the hole of the base as well as a back magnet right here. But before putting this piece on, you need to get two pieces on here. The double tread, the only double tread, is going to be a very small peg into a hole, not magnetized. And then back here, the smallest tread will magnetize into a hole there. Okay, so this is the smallest tread, magnetized, and then the only double tread, no magnetized. You put both onto this piece, and then this piece goes onto the base. This is the second piece you put on. So the first piece, remember this one is the only one that has a small hole instead of a peg, and then this piece. Then you have this separate piece right over here, and it has no less than 3 pieces that go onto it. Before working on this though, you put this piece here onto the base itself. This tread does not go onto any detachable part. It goes right onto the base, and it's magnetized. It's a unique fit, and it's one of the treads with a peg on the middle of it. So you slide that right in here, and then you put the 3 treads onto here like I earlier just showed you. Again, all of these are pegs and magnetized, except the one at the very, very end, which is not magnetized. You put all of that on, and then you attach this in. And then once you have that, this is the final look of the base. So before sort of moving on to Tifa herself, I wanted to just sort of do a nice little spin and just kind of show you how everything looks put together. It's a beautiful base with a lot of just sort of torn tracks. This does remind me a lot of magneto bases that want to showcase damage to the base or damage to surrounding metal. Except of course Tifa has no powers of magnetism. She basically ripped this thing apart, with her strength, her fists. So overall, I think it's quite a beautiful base with amazing casting, amazing sculpt, amazing detail, and beautiful paint. Very, very beautiful weathering, a metallic gunmetal metallic paint application. I'm coming at you from a certain angle, so hopefully, for those of you who don't have this piece yet, or who are thinking about it, you can really sort of appreciate from this optimal distance all the wonderful details that went into it, and also the paint to bring out those details. This is one of the best, honestly, one of the best paint apps I've ever seen on a metallic base or metal destruction base. It's on par with XM Studios or some of my custom Magneto bases. And I would say absolutely, equal, and in some cases superior to them. Only criticism is the complete fiasco of instructions to show you how to put it together. But hopefully between the other video and this video, there will be absolutely no confusion on how to do it. Okay, and again, all of it. One of the other things I have to compliment is a lot of times with custom pieces, very frustrating, and sometimes even again with licensed pieces, they just don't fit together. You're jamming it. You're afraid that you're going to break one of the pegs. They all go every which way, and it's not it doesn't feel good to have that happen. And again, I have to give props to Neoclassicism 02 Studios, where the majority of all of this comes together with magnets, many small magnets, and the ones that don't come with it still fits beautifully. So props to them for that. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to have to take a break because I cannot put Tifa onto the base without requiring both hands. She's very difficult to do. the two legs are actually a little bit off, and I think they're off for most of the statues, probably to just make sure she's seated very tightly. But it takes two hands to put it on. Okay, so I'm going to stop the video at this point, and then I'm going to, of course, edit it together. So when I see you next time, the body of Tifa will be on the base, and then we'll go from there and talk a little bit more about, I guess, the design decisions, which is a little bit odd to me, maybe unique again to these types of anime video game statues, and we'll continue to show how she looks. Okay, and see you after the cut. Bye-bye. Okay, welcome back. So Tifa, or her main body and torso, is now placed onto the statue base. First of all, I actually did have to remove this piece in order to properly put her in. If for some of you guys, her pegs for the feet are as tight as mine, you do have to kind of line both up. I like to start by lining the back foot into position. It's going to slide a little bit in, and then when it slides about 1 millimeter or so in, then you kind of take this and you just gently bend and wriggle it a little bit, and it will seat very nicely. Okay, but it's a little bit tricky, but it seats tight, it seats nice as it's supposed to. And then because it takes so much wriggling, I just removed this part because it gave me more space to do it. And then I was able to put this part in with no problems. And the back tire tread, as you can see, basically touches her boot. So I don't know if you can appreciate that because of the angle, but this is sort of what it looks like. So this is kind of wriggles a little bit. I can see that the two tracks, sort of behind her boot. So one from here, one from there, and they're both sort of next to her red boots here. Okay, so let's just sort of appreciate again the very nice detailed sculpting and paint. You can see the black shoelaces, again the weathering of the shoes, again excellent metal work. That's one of the themes of the statues. They do the metal remarkably well. This is again essentially prototype level quality for gunmetal weathering. So both shoes really, really nice. And then you come up. This is almost impossible to capture on camera, but it's just this is actually micro, it's incredible texturing here. I don't know if I can actually just show you how good that is. It's really hard. I'm going to back up a little bit, and then you can kind of just see. Maybe when I have that black background, you can see a little bit more, but it's just it's really hard to focus on it. But suffice to say that there's actually a lot of texturing, and it's really, really good. You can see where the hose ends on the legs. Okay, so there you have that. Sorry, this is not very good. I'm just trying to see if I can show a little bit better. Maybe from here, you can slowly come up. You can actually maybe get a hint of how fine the work is. But this is actually one of the most impressive parts of the statue. I think it's impossible to actually recreate without digital sculpturing and then printing. But again, pretty amazing. So now we come to sort of this odd design decision for the statue. They decided to make her, I guess, nude. Now I have to say that the paint job for the flesh is done very, very well. Again, this is a factory paint job, and so they do again the flesh work incredibly well. It is oddly anatomically correct, and again sculpted very nicely. However, it's just sort of a weird decision to do this. I don't know whether this is something that's done for a lot of video game and anime statues. It seems like it is, and I don't really quite understand why that is. I guess maybe some people like to display their characters like this, and it's just one more option to satisfy demand. But of course, from my point of view, I'm not going to display it like this at all. But I want to do a complete review of it. This is how it comes. And in fact, you can even see the pictures showing how to take care of this. So the paint job, first of all, very good, anatomically correct. The buttocks done very nicely. You can see the dimple in the back right over here. So, everything here done very, very well. You can see the texturing again of the shirt, and this will be hidden most of the time once we have everything put together. Now, this does create a problem. The problem is that for whatever reason, again, because they have decided to sculpt the actual body of Tifa, rather than sculpt her clothes on, you now have to put on the clothes. And what you do is, this is the back half, okay? This is the back of her skirt. This is the front of her skirt. And the front of the skirt has these very, very small pegs on both sides. And you actually snap it together on these small holes. Now, I really don't like this. This is like a major criticism of the statue. And unlike the instructions, this is like, sort of a very serious one, because again, in their desire to show Tifa's natural anatomy, I just want to make sure she's seated right now. So yeah, so if you think she's leaning, she's not leaning, she's rock solid on there. In their desire to show Tifa's natural anatomy, they've now created sort of this fatal flaw, because remember that, almost like 99% of the time, we're going to display her clothed. But how are you going to put the clothes onto this essentially nude body? Well, they did this like this. This is how they're going to do it. They're going to go behind, they're going to go in front, they're going to snap it together, and then you're going to have this skirt. There's a couple of things wrong with this. First of all, this is, of course, plastic. It has to be plastic because you have to have a little bit of give as you put things together, right? I mean, if you're going to snap the front and the back together, you need this to be plastic in order for you to accomplish this. Now, I think that still the print and the details of the sculpt and the paint is decent, but the fact that it's plastic does make it feel cheap, and there is only so much you can do with this type of material. Here, you can see that they're trying to give you the belt and all that, and then in the back, again, you can see this is sort of you can sort of subtly see how her hips will fill out the skirt, and so it's kind of sculpted. But again, overall, it just feels cheap. It's plastic, and the details and the paint are limited by, in a sense, the medium. It's very flat black. There's not a lot of texturing or detail. It is, sort of what it is here. So when you put this against the rest of this, it sort of sticks out like a sore thumb. And so I'm not sure if the titillation factor or trying to satisfy the people who are into this type of thing was worth sacrificing all of that for, because number one, you now created a scenario where to put the skirt onto this nude body, it sort of detracts from the art aspect of the piece and turns it more into like a toy, which I dislike, okay? So that's one problem right there. The second problem is that the plastic, in order to get onto here, is not, it's not trivial. You have to put in the back, in the front, you have to wriggle it, and then you have to snap it together, and then you have to seat it down. And when you do this, you are inevitably going to scratch, or you're going to leave behind some of the black onto her, onto her statue, onto this material. And it looks really ugly. Like, there's basically black marks. When I first did, there was black marks on the sides, over here. I mean, everywhere there was just basically scratches and black marks, which obviously you don't want to have, okay? And so that's why they have this, little sort of instruction saying, hey, by the way, because there's 2 layers of protective paint, just take some alcohol and a Q-tip, and then you just basically, you can wipe off all of the black discoloration. To be safe, I didn't do that. I used, believe it or not, this was something that was a problem with the Superman, Sideshow Superman original premium format, where in order to put the red cape onto Superman, a lot of times the red of the cape would scratch on the flesh of the neck. And as it happens, if you just take a pencil eraser head, just a pink eraser head, and you just kind of gently, erase it, you can actually erase all of those black marks off, which is what I did. So I think, that came out pretty well. I don't think you could tell that that anything, had been done or that it had been discolored. So the fact that, of course, this was necessary in the first place, though, is quite annoying. But there you go. So this is a major, in my opinion, detractor from the piece, is you have to put a plastic skirt onto her lower torso, and putting on the plastic skirt inevitably is going to scratch that. And I don't know who's going to display like this. I mean, it's sort of a ridiculous way of displaying Tifa. But again, this is like really one of my first video game statues that I've purchased in over, I would guess, almost 15 years. And when I looked it through, I mean, I guess there was a lot of other anime and video game characters that have the same treatment. I guess they have the nude version and the clothed version, and I guess there must be some sort of demographic or demand for this. But I think to fulfill that, it's rather poor. I mean, I do wish that they had just simply sculpted the skirt and the clothes directly onto the statue, and they would have been able to sculpt, a lot more pleasing, form-fitting skirt. There would be a lot more texture, a lot more detail. It would have looked a lot better instead of, again, just putting this onto the body. It makes it just, it just makes it feel like a cheap toy in a sense. And I've bought like toys for my daughters at Disneyland, where I don't know if you know, but they have all these different characters like Sophia or whatnot, and they're very cheap like plastic doll figures. They're plastic, and then you basically snap on and off dresses, like Anna's dress you can snap off, and then the underlying princess, of course, has underwear. It's not nude like this, but the idea is, you just snap off, and that's one way for the kids to play with different dresses. It extends sort of the play, and that kind of reminds me of that, which is really not what you want from a fine art statue. So when you look, let's just say right about here, below the naughty part, so to speak, like this looks like amazing. It looks stunning, right? It looks like a great. Look at this thing, just like kind of twirling around. It's just an amazing statue, great base. And then all of a sudden you're going to pan up and you're going to see a cheap plastic skirt. Okay, if you want to display her nude, then it's great, because then you don't have to touch this. So if you want to display Tifa completely naked, I guess that's a great effect. But I mean, who's going to do that? I mean, that's going to be like 0.5% of 1%. Who's going to display her completely nude? And so if you don't want to display her nude and want to display her, obviously like this, like the way she's supposed to, then you wind up with this plastic thing on her. So anyways, enough complaining about that. I don't think that was, very good. So we're going to now, of course, put this on, and that's going to take two hands to do. So before I do that, I am going to go up to the torso. So she also has two torsos. So one of them, and the one that is going to be displayed like literally again 99.9% of the time, is going to be the clothed form. And so again, I want to pay kind of special attention to how nice the texturing is. You can see the texture here. You can see they actually sculpt all of the the folds of the clothes of the tank top. It looks again really, really good. I guess from this angle, it's the best way to show it. So it looks really, really good. And one of the things that's really nice is that when you put the arms and everything underneath, they sculpt her chest in a very realistic fashion, so it's not symmetrical. She's pulling on her gloves. So here, I'm going to put on, well, what should I do first? I mean, I guess, so this is again the chest or the torso that you're going to display her 99.9% of the time. They also have a nude version, which is like really weird, but you put this on here like this. And so then that's what it looks like completely nude, which is an interesting effect. And then we have the arms. So we'll just do this here. So we have the arms right over here. It's all magnetized right underneath. And then you're gonna have the other arm up over here. And then that goes through. There should be a piece of fabric between the nails. And that puts it like this. And then you have the actual, put this aside right over here. So you have this thing right over here. I don't know, I don't think you actually have this. So we'll just put one of her heads on here. I'll go through the heads a little bit later on. And then there's a head, this is one of the heads. Come on. Just like that, okay? All right, so anyways, this is sort of the nude version of Tifa. I'm walking through, just like that. So there you have it right here. This is a close-up of her face. Again, really hard to get the details. Excellent sculpt, actually, but really, really hard to show on camera how this looks. So in any case, I think that if you want to just judge her purely on anatomy, then, you know, they did a fantastic job sculpting her. The anatomy is completely, utterly accurate, even to the way the breasts have to be deformed when she's lifting it from below to adjust her gloves with the hand. And so that's actually really good because, you know, when you have the clothes off, you can see kind of how they had to sculpt and adjust how the breasts are aligned on her arms, how they're asymmetric, how they have to flow if they're very large breasts. And Tifa, you know, for better or for worse, one of her claims to fame, even from the Final Fantasy VII original, even with the pixels, like, you know, even with the character model, is that she had a very large chest. And so that's accurate. And when you have, you know, large breasts like that and you're going to go underneath to sort of adjust it, that's the way it has to be sculpted to be anatomically correct. So overall, you know, this is, again, the so-called nude version, which it's possible for you to display, and they make it possible for you to do that. And it keys in together very well and very seamlessly so that, you know, you can't even tell where the join lines are. And you can see that her hair is waving behind her. So this is, again, you know, if you can imagine that version just without her clothes, that's what it would look like. Okay, so that, I mean, I'm just going to capture for posterity to be thorough in the review, but this is unlikely to be something that you're going to be displaying. All right, so now let's remove her head. And we're going to remove her arms. And this thing actually goes underneath her chest. We're going to remove this part right over here. So you can see this is what it looks like from behind. Again, it's not very sexy when you put it all apart, right? It kind of looks a little bit creepy, actually. Like you actually cut that part off, and then this is the part that you're going to put on right here. Okay, so that snaps on very nicely. And so here they have the added challenge of you know, sculpting now the tank top over her chest and making it look realistic. And you can see, again, there's the slight asymmetry of the breasts right over here. And then because this one is clothed and not nude, you have to have an additional neck piece right here to put the head on, okay? And then we're gonna put on the arms the same way. This again, I just wanna see just remarkable, how can I show this here? So hopefully you can appreciate just remarkable texturing of the costume. Look at the gloves, and you can see the fingernails, hopefully, right over here. You can see the little gap where she's going to be actually fingering the strap on the other hand, okay? So very nicely done. And we're going to magnetize it right here. So it goes right underneath. Okay, and then you can see that she's about ready to fit that in. And then look at this here. So again, she's pulling on the gloves, getting ready for action. Here's her elbow guards. And then this is the strap that she's strapping on. So you put this up like this, and then you rotate so the strap is between the fingers, and so it looks like she is casually adjusting and putting on the straps for her, I don't know what you call these things, like elbow guards or gloves or whatever. She's putting everything together, about ready to fight. So this is, again, pretty awesome, kind of getting this together. And then this thing is actually going to connect to her cheap plastic skirt, okay? So that's where the arms are. And then we're going to put on the skirt, goes front and back. And then there's this thing that goes on over that. Everything has to fit into the skirt, so this is going to fit into the plastic skirt. And then this is going to fit in as well. And then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to decide which one of the heads you're going to display her with. All right, so I'm going to cut away again. I'm going to put on everything, put on the skirt, hopefully without scratching her body, and then we'll finish this review off. Okay, welcome back. So this is Tifa in all her glory, finally all put together. So I'm going to try to back up so we can kind of get a view of her, the entire statue here. So here we go. Right on over here. I'm trying to twirl her a little bit. All right. So what you have to do is you have to put the skirt from the front and the back, you have to clip that together. So again, to avoid scratching the statue underneath or to minimize that, I'm actually not sure if it is possible to do this correctly without smudging it at least somewhat. You have to actually bring it together further up the waist, all the way up here. You snap it together, you adjust it, and then you kind of gently press down to go low. And you need to go low because you have to put these straps here. There's actually pegs that go into the holes on either shoulder, and then that is actually going to snap into divots here and here, as well as an opening right over here. And so if the plastic skirt is not low enough, then this is not going to fit in quite as nicely. And this strap actually is a little bit long, and it's coming from her right arm. So you might have to kind of move this up a little bit, for instance, but it's all magnetized in any case. So typically, I put the chest piece on first, and then the two arms, then you slide that together right over here. You can see where you have the strapping place. And then after all that's done, you put, you put this piece before even the arms. Okay, so because that actually goes behind the arm, so you have to put this, this strap into position. So the skirt goes on first, then these straps, and then the chest, and then the arms. Actually, I put the chest on before the straps. The sequence is a little bit off because once you put the chest up, then you're gonna see the grooves that you can put this on. And then after that, the arms. So it's quite a bit of doing. And then finally, the last part, of course, is the head, the face. So I'm gonna back off from here, and then we're just gonna twirl her slowly around so you can see her from all perspectives. And then we'll keep on twirling. As we go to the base. We've spent a lot of time on the base already, the base, the shoes. So a bit more time with her now completely clothed. You can appreciate some of the detail, the texturing. Okay, so this is the Neoclassicism O2 Studios Tifa Lockhart from Final Fantasy VII Remake. Overall, again, this is a fantastic statue. I was really pleasantly surprised. You know, initial early photographs had me kind of thinking I was gonna get ripped off, but as it turned out, she turned out very, very well. So let's get into sort of the review, some of my thoughts. You know, what are some of the things to think about? I think until we see the Pink Studios version, which is another one that's kind of come with a little bit of hype, I think that this Tifa, in my opinion, is probably the best one on the market. I think that the production quality in terms of the sculpt, the casting, and the paint is second to none. So in terms of just sheer quality from top to bottom, packaging, thought process, you know, the way everything is fit, in terms of just quality of materials, quality of workmanship, all the little things from the sculpt to the production, the molding, the casting, the paint job, the shipping, how the pieces fit together, all of that I think is an A+ for me, okay? And I think statue companies have gotten rather sloppy. They've gotten more ambitious and they've gotten more sloppy. And what I mean by that is, in the old days, when you just have, for instance, sideshow collectibles, you got, you know, a statue with basically one head, two arms, or just one piece, like the classic Andy Burgo's Incredible Hulk was a base and a statue. That was it, you know. The classic Doctor Doom from Sideshow was basically all one piece. And then if you got the exclusive, you had the stand with the goblet. But then as they became more, as companies became more and more ambitious, wanting to create greater and greater pieces with more and more complexity, they started breaking pieces apart. You know, it's also easier to paint. For instance, if you're just selling kits, for instance, it's much easier to paint them and then assemble them. There was a lot more ingenuity when it came to creating, you know, pieces where you're making the seam lines invisible, where you're going to cut them. And so that was a trend begun really with custom pieces, and then to some extent continued with even the licensed versions. And I think about Prime 1 and XM Studios particularly, where you have just so many different pieces put together. And so that's the ambitious part. And then the sloppy part comes where the quality control begins to slip, and some of those pieces don't fit very well. They don't want to use magnets. It's very frustrating when things don't come together. And I've had, you know, pieces that are $2,000+ incredibly complicated, that then don't fit together right, and that's incredibly demoralizing and frustrating. So to have this piece come together and essentially fit together perfectly with magnets in all the proper places, that was very, very good. Okay, so in terms of all of that, it's very good. In terms of the actual likeness, obviously when they first sold this piece, they did a render, which is a computer drawing or facsimile of what it's going to look like. Of course, it looks much better than this because this is a 3D render, and the 3D renders are always going to be better than the actual statue. This is not just for video game statues or Tifa. This is literally with everything, all customs. But if you want to kind of take that away, and don't judge it against the render, but just look at it as a quality, quality statue. It's still fantastic. I love the way that they sculpted the hair. The hair is moving to the side, which gives you the illusion that the wind is blowing from the character's left to the right. So it gives it a bit more of a dynamic flash than a lot of the other Tifas out there. The hair is done very nicely, and this hair is actually not plastic but resin, so it's quite heavy. You can all see all of the individual strands moving along. Very, very well done hairpiece, actually. Look at the gloves. Very, very beautiful detail, like I mentioned before, and now you can see it in context. An iconic stance of Tifa putting on her gloves, strapping it down, getting ready for combat. This is very good. Now, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't just kind of address the elephant in the room, which is that Tifa is one of the more sensual characters in Fighting Fantasy VII. From the time she was first revealed as a character, she definitely had assets in the chest department. She had large breasts. The way she was depicted, that was just kind of her claim to fame. But it was always done, I think, tastefully. But there is a certain sensuality associated with her character. So there's that marriage of sort of the woman who can really who can take care of herself, who's very, very good in combat. She'll kick your butt, but then it's also married to, again, that sort of sexiness or sensuality. And video games are targeted toward adolescent boys, and so it's no surprise that that's going to be a part of a character. But this was also meant to sort of contrast with the other love interest for Cloud, which is Aerith. And Aerith is the flower girl, and she, of course, is very different from Tifa. A lot more innocent in her dress, and also she doesn't fight like Tifa. So they're very different characters, both in terms of the character design, and also to provide contrast to each other as sort of a love triangle for Cloud in Final Fantasy VII, and the fandom of Final Fantasy VII are often split typically between Tifa fans and Aerith fans. So based on that, this is a very faithful recreation of what Tifa is and what she's about. It's very good, I think, in terms of a representation of the Final Fantasy VII game design. The costume is very, very nice. One of the things I do like is I appreciate anatomy. Again, from a non-sexual point of view or from a non-sensual point of view, I just like, or I applaud or I appreciate anatomically correct sculpture. And so one of the things I do like is kind of how the clothes are laying across her breasts, how the breasts are deformed to some degree, or how the breasts are shifted because the arm is lifting up underneath and tightening the straps there. So the design of the statue, they did go for something a little bit more ambitious. A lot of Tifas typically kind of just show her standing there. And one of the things I don't really love about Tifa statues or Tifa art design in general is she kind of has, like, normally she's depicted with just really, I guess, fake breasts. And I know that's laughable to some extent because, of course, she has very large ones, and so it's not all that realistic. But I don't like sort of the drawings of her or statues where she just has where she's basically depicted or given a very large bolt-on or obvious like implant type of breasts. I dislike that type of anatomy or art design. And so one of the things that sort of attracted me to the statue in terms of setting it apart is the fact that they decided to go for the extra challenge of sculpting like realistic natural breasts and how that would actually, how the anatomy would move when it's displaced again with the arm. And I think that was an interesting sort of challenge that sets this particular Tifa statue from all other Tifa statues. Now, all Tifa statues are going to accentuate her breasts to some degree. That is, whether you like it or not, part of the core of her design. Okay, But this is the only one that, in my opinion, depicts her breasts naturally and the most realistically. Now, some people really dislike the fact that she's sort of moving her chest. They feel like it overly sexualizes the character and it detracts from it. And that's one way of looking at it. I, on the other hand, don't really see it from that point of view. I see it as sort of a sculptural challenge that they undertook to make themselves unique and to sort of put out a Tifa statue that, that basically is showcasing this part of her anatomy in a way that others don't or won't or can't. There's a lot of Tifa statues that just show her with big boobs. And I don't think that is any less, for instance, sexualizing than what they're doing here. They just do it a lot nicer. They give you a much nicer sculpt, and it's done a lot more realistically. And earlier I just show her, in the nude version with her without the clothes. And you can see in a lot more detail there. You can see and appreciate again the realism of the anatomy. So I think the titillation factor aside, I think that is one of the reasons they put that there. So when you put everything together, it's pretty impressive. I mean, it's not just, again, the clothes over the chest. If you remove all the clothes, you can actually see the entire body sculpted very, very well. And her body definitely is is one of the better sculpted, more anatomically correct versions out there. So in any case, enough about Tifa's, I guess, boobs, so to speak. But for better or for worse, that is a big part of her art design. So that's one of the things about this particular statue that makes it, unique, and in my opinion, makes it very, very good. Her anatomy is perfect, and it's perfectly done, and it's again a realistic anatomy. She may have large breasts, but it's large breasts anatomically correct and also sculpted very well. And I like that. Okay, I definitely like the effort that goes into that. It has, in my opinion, one of the best bases. We've already looked at the shoes, the details of the shoes. The base is just fantastic. I've talked about how this is on par with the best Magneto bases from XM. Take a look at the demarcation of the socks to the thighs. It's just super clean. The paint here, just perfect. Extremely well done. And hopefully now that I'm finally with a proper background, now you can kind of see the sort of the microfiber texture of the socks. I hope this one shot right here, just go real close and you can take a look at all the little tiny squares created by the vertical and horizontal lines, all the way down from the boots all the way up. That's amazing. And the same type of detail can be seen along the arms as well. Whatever, I don't even know what you call these, but whatever you call these things, the arm guards or the gloves that go all the way up, halfway up her arms, you can still see the same type of texture. So amazing detail, amazing work, amazing painting. And the final thing about her is the face again. This is a typical video game face. This is true to the design from Final Fantasy VII Remake. Is it completely accurate? I don't know if it is. I mean, like I said, I haven't had the pleasure of playing the game personally yet. I plan to do that. My feeling though is that Tifa comes in so many different looks. Like she has so many different looks in the video game, the various video games, the various animes, various very different video games and anime and movies. And this is sort of maybe a homage to all of them. Remember that this is an unlicensed piece, which means that Square Enix obviously has no role in approving it. They would never have approved a nude statue of Tifa in the first place. And so this is an unlicensed piece, which means that the creator or the company sort of has no obligation to be completely accurate to any one version of Tifa. Oftentimes these statues blend the best of all of their costumes, and they give you like a kind of a blended look. And so I think that it's very difficult to please every Tifa fan because everyone has a particular concept of the way her face should look. And I think her face does look different depending on the scene that she's in and the game she's in and the movie she's in. But as far as this goes, this is a beautifully sculpted and beautifully designed face with excellent paint. trying to go really, really close. The thing about her that's amazing, aside from the subtle makeup, as well as, again, just the facial features, a very, very pretty, beautiful version of Tifa. An excellent portrait, in my opinion. Whether you feel it's accurate or not to the actual video game, this is still a well-done portrait, very, kind of just very soft, realistic. And if you look here, the eyes are absolutely amazing because this is the only version, as far as I know, that actually took the time to put in glass eyes. And that's the reason why we have two heads. Normally when we have two heads, there's like a difference in expression, there's a difference in their smiling, you can see the teeth. But if you look at the two heads here, they're very, very similar. So I don't want to break it. I'm going to put this like next door to her. So if you look at the two, I mean, they're very similar. They're just essentially almost identical. The expression even is completely the same. Maybe it's a slightly different, sculpt. Although I'd have to say that this could just simply be the angle or the shadow. It looks essentially identical, but the difference, of course, is that in this version, and it took a lot to figure it out. You have to actually look at it from the bottom up. You can see that this is actually, this is not the glass eye. Okay, this is actually either painted and gloss, or there's a decal or whatever. But this is like the normal portrait. This is the portrait I think you get with the regular version. Which is still fine. It's beautiful. They did a fantastic job doing that. The hair is a little bit, it's got a little bit of discoloration from just dust and stuff, but that's easily fixed with some black paint or just, something to just, some water to wipe it off. But this is a great portrait. Look at it from all different perspectives. Fantastic. But what sort of separates it is the fact that you can put it on the exclusive head, which actually has glass eyes, which kind of takes it a level above. It's a little bit hard to see or to appreciate, so I'm going to just try to take it off here. Right there. I'm going to put this down, and then we're going to put on the head with the normal eyes, just to kind of give you guys a different look, appreciation of different look. So this is what she looks like now, without the glass eyes, and still, very pretty, very beautiful overall. And this is now a close-up look at the exclusive head. And this is the one with the glass eyes. You can tell by just angling up, and you can clearly see that this is the glass eyes inset in the head right here versus the other version. So that's what she looks like. You can see the details of the eyebrows and the eyelashes. Okay, so that's her. And then this is what she looks like without it. So it just kind of depends on the particular look you're going for and what pleases you. It's kind of funny, but I think this version, for whatever reason, just because the lighting maybe even looks a little bit better, maybe a little bit more natural than this one. The one with the eyes might be even looking a little bit creepier, so to speak. But it's good to have that option to alternate the displays. So that's why you have two heads, by the way. Not because there's any huge change in expression, but mainly just because of the eyes. One has glass eyes, one doesn't. So overall, this is like an amazing Tifa statue. Again, just summarizing it in terms of the final product, I'm going to just spin real quickly. So you have an ability to just kind of see her from all different angles, back and forth, back and front. In my opinion, great portrait. And I think this portrait is very difficult to photograph or video. I know it's going to have criticism, but I think in person, it's a phenomenal portrait. Okay, again, may not be perfectly, perfect to the 3D render or to the game, but in person, you will not be disappointed if you buy this in person. It's a phenomenal portrait, and with the glass eyes, just takes it to the next level. And then, of course, we talked about all the anatomy, outstanding anatomy, accurate, the challenge, okay, of trying to depict again natural flow, natural movement, the best hair movement as well. Great detail with the clothes, all the way down to a spectacular base, okay? And then of course, I had mentioned previously, very classy, a lot of classy little details. So you actually have a little plaque that commemorates the statue. Now the only thing, by the way, I do want to bring up is that on other YouTube reviews, they actually show that the limitation is a 388. And the one I have clearly shows it's 332. I have no doubt that this is actually authentic. There's no way that, in my opinion, this is a recast with the metal, the glass eyes, everything is completely legit. And so why I would have this, this different limitation when both videos, I think there's one that's all in Korean, and then again, there's the gentleman from Australia. But the thing is, well, actually, he's not in Australia. I'm wrong. I think he actually mentions in one of the comments that he's in Malaysia. So, maybe I just can't, I just can't place my accents. But in any case, both of those showcase, has this as a 388. And so I don't know what the deal is. Maybe there's actually separate limitations. Maybe O2 Studios is cheating a little bit because 300 is a super limited number of pieces. So this should be sold out very quickly, but you can still buy this, by the way. The price, unfortunately, has increased significantly. I think most of them are selling out for excess of $700 or $800. Even from the stores, because they're sold out. I got it for a relatively good deal at only about 500 and change, I believe. So it could be that even though they're still available, maybe the reason is not quite as rare, is that there's maybe different edition sizes. Maybe there's a separate edition size for international customers versus ones just in Asia. That's a separate limitation. If that is so, they did not make it very clear. They certainly don't have separate edition numbers to make it clear. For instance, Infinity Studios, which used to do that, had a domestic or Asian limitation, and then the international limitation. It was very, very clear which was which. This was on the certificate of authenticity as well. So just a little bit of a mystery. So if those of you who may know the true answer can certainly, please feel free to post below to clear that up. But again, mine is 324 out of a limitation of 332, which is different from other YouTube videos where it shows it to be 388. And in fact, on the sale pages, the limitation is shown as 388. So definitely a very, very rare piece, however you cut it, even if you double the additional size, and absolutely will not be disappointed. I think this has the best anatomy by far of the Tifa statues, and quality top-notch, top to bottom. The disadvantages or the criticisms, I think that the, again, instructions is very, very poor, which I'm not very thrilled about. It's very easy to put together. I mean, this is definitely not like an XM Hulkbuster, for instance, piece, or White Magneto, but the treads are definitely not very intuitive, very, very difficult to do. Without some help from YouTube, I'm not sure if I would have ever been able to do it. It certainly would have taken me a lot longer. This is a minor nitpick, and then the major criticism, again, is the skirt. So now that we have her on, it may not look so bad. I still think that it's definitely a little bit cheap and not. It's not ideal because, again, if you sculpted the skirt onto her body, you could definitely have made it a lot nicer looking. It would have looked more form-fitting. You could have accentuated her curves. You would have been able to add tons more texture. I mean, look, compare the detail of the skirt versus the detail again of her hands. There's just no comparison in terms of all of that. So pretty, again, disappointed by this type of compromise, all just to show her her nude body. I just don't think that's a very good trade-off. Really wish they could have done away without that. And so we didn't have to worry about that. I could have done without the switch out chest where you saw her bare breasts. I think that combination is maybe catering to an element that I don't think is mainstream or the majority. I don't know. Again, I'm not the classic person that this type of thing is, I guess catering to. This is after all my first video game statue in like 15 years. But I just feel like that combination just kind of increases cost. I mean, I've been on record before talking about how I'm not a big fan of endless switch outs, which Prime 1 and XM Studios are, and back before them, of course, Hot Toys, were notorious for and still are, just endless different heads with ridiculously minimal expressions. I don't like them. I know there's a lot of people who do, but if I feel that way about switch out arms and heads, you can imagine my feelings about switch out breasts or switch out chests, which this is what this is. So I could have done without that. I could have done with a more, improved sculpture, again, of her buttocks and her lower torso, not having the snap-on sort of plastic skirt, which I think cheapens it, and of course then creates the added problem with scratching or, essentially smearing the underlying sculpt with the black, black scrapes, which then you have to take off using either alcohol or a eraser head, either way. But again, it's sort of a unnecessary complication because 99% of the population, 99% of the people who buy the statue, when you display something this beautiful in your display cabinet, or you're going to put it out there, you're not going to put a nude version of Tifa, out there. So why you have something this kind of creepy chest version of her to cast this is just just really weird. I mean, I know YouTube has like a policy against nudity. I just don't think that this is particularly sexually suggestive or titillating. This looks, again, just quite frankly really, really creepy. You can actually see, because this is the bare chest, you can see the groove sculpted underneath it for the arm to snap into. And again, that's what this does as well. So everything kind of puts together to create the illusion of motion, but it's all very well thought out. But to have one of these guys, it just doesn't seem quite necessary. And then of course you have to do this. I just think that's pretty terrible. So not a fan of that, but it seems that all these Japanese anime statues and video game statues are all like that. I mean, I think the Ping Studios one also has cast off clothing. And so I'm kind of scared because, I don't know what that's going to do again to the quality of the statue again. Is it going to feel cheap again? Is it going to be more plastic on top of their body? I just don't know how that's going to work. If you have to snap it on or off, then again, you run into the same problems here, damaging the underlying sculpt. And then of course you can see this very visible seam line where the two come together. Again, not, it's a small detail, but it's an important one. If I try to move the skirt up a little bit so that it fits better, then these things are going to start popping out because you need a certain amount of length, for this to fit into the divots here. So for these new Tifa statues, if you're going to snap clothes on, in my experience, at least with this one, I don't think clothes that snap on do very well, look very good. But if you don't do that, I'm going to just have switch outs. I can have a switch out clothed body with a switch out nude body. We're never going to display her with a switch out nude body, except for maybe a YouTube review, and then and you put it away, and then that just kind of artificially increases the cost, and you just have these body parts lying around for no reason. So I would be interested to see how, I guess, the Ping Studios decides to deal with that. But aside from that problem, the statue is amazing. And again, in my opinion, until I see the Ping Studios one, I've seen a lot of the other ones from Mayfly and MH. I've seen her in a cocktail dress. But this, in my mind, is iconic. When I think of Tifa, Lockhart from Final Fantasy VII, all her remake glory, this is what I see her in. Iconic costume, iconic pose, and just, iconic details. So you have it all. You have her walking through the wreckage of some mech that she's torn apart. You have her in her classic costume, and the classic pose where she's getting her gloves and tightening it up, either about to enter battle again or just sort of smoothing things out right after finishing something. This is really, really good. And again, whether you like it or not, her breast size, her sexuality is part of her character from the very beginning, from Final Fantasy VII when she was introduced. This was sort of part of her character design, and they remained very faithful to it, and also added a small little twist with the movement of the breasts to make it, unique. So overall, I am very, very pleased, and kind of pleasantly surprised actually with the quality. Again, you have 2 head sculpts, the glass eyes, all of that puts it over the top. I think this will be very, very difficult Tifa to to knock off her perch or to dethrone from her seat. Right now, everybody is saying that the Pink Studios one, they're waiting for. Apparently, that studio has a very good reputation. So we'll see. Okay, we'll see what that looks like in hand, what the paint application is like, how the details are. I can already tell you that this Tifa has better anatomy. Okay, speaking of someone again who's has a little bit of background in all of this, going through medical school and anatomy and all that. I mean, even though I'm in head and neck and I haven't done, say, breast surgery or whatever since I was a surgical intern, I would tell you that in terms of the sculpt, this Tifa has better anatomy than the Pink Studios one, which is again sort of the generic. I'm standing there with my huge implants. That's what she's got, and what almost all the other Tifa statues essentially are sculpted to look like. So this got better anatomy. Let's see what the other one has in terms of the other quality aspects of it. But so far, I think that for sure, with everything put together, this one is the class in a league of its own, and sets the class of the entire generation of Tifa statues from FF7 Remake. So, Neoclassicism, O2 Studios. This is my review. It's gonna be a long one, way over an hour. And I hope that there's not too much issue with like a statue, essentially depiction of what it is. I think that I just wanted to show that because that's a part of the statue, and you want to definitely showcase that so you know what you're going to be getting. So hopefully there won't be any issues with all of this, showcasing both the nude version as well as the clothed version. And so I hope you enjoyed that, and until next time, take care.